Hello and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here and talk about LinkedIn today. Let's just wait a few more seconds for everyone to join. Okay, now that we are more here in this virtual room, I get to say thank you for being here, and I'm very curious to know where are you joining us today and where's the weather like. We had a chat in the backstage about weather. And I'm happy that right now it's sunny here and we are in a good mood for chatting and we want to know about you. Where are you joining from? So let's start, shall we? I'm Miruna, I'm your host and I'm the social media manager at Socialinsider. Socialinsider is a social media analytics and benchmarking platform that helps you understand what's working, compare your performance, and build better data-driven strategies. Today's insight came from our freshly released 2026 LinkedIn benchmark study, where we analyzed millions of LinkedIn posts to understand what actually drives performance. And now we are adding the glitter over our data, the expert's take. And here with us, we have some great marketing minds. And I'm going to start introducing you to Denisa. She is a global social media specialist for Lego at MRM, which is part of McCann Group. Also, we have Eunice Cancino. She's a social and content strategist working with VC and tech brands. And we also have Casey, but she has some problems to connect. So we are hoping she's gonna join us soon. So hello everyone, and thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling? Nis and Denisa, how are you feeling?
I'm excited to chat about all things LinkedIn, and we're going to pull back the curtain and share some insights, get a little more specific upon what we're seeing that's working, and yeah, getting all the hot takes delivered today.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm very happy to hear that. What about you, Denisa? How are you today?
I'm actually looking forward to see what kind of questions we will be receiving from the audience.
Yeah, me too. And I see that the audience is very active. We got a lot of answer with people saying that they are from South Carolina. It's practically summer already. Amazing. And from London and from Bucharest. Amazing. Amazing, guys. I suggest another person from London. Hi. I suggest to going really quickly through key insights from our study, so it will be easier for everyone to follow the discussion later on. So let me present you the data. I hope you all can see. So after we analyzed 1 million posts, more than 1 million posts actually, we came to some conclusions. So right now in 2026, the average engagement rate for LinkedIn stands at 5.20%, and it's an increase of 8% year over year. Also, the best performing format on LinkedIn right now are carousels or native documents, which stands at 7% engagement rate and has a 14 year-over-year increase. At the same time, we have a decline in video views across all page size of 36%. And also, the audience growth decreased for all page size, but especially for larger accounts. And the surprise is that polls are generating more impressions. And I'm curious to know if this match what you're seeing in your analytics. You can leave your answer in the chat if for you the carousels are the best performing content format, or I don't know, maybe you have other results, but let's see. And you can also scan this QR code and read the full LinkedIn report later on if you didn't find it here. So indeed, we have some changes for LinkedIn, but what's the biggest shift you personally noticed in LinkedIn performance over the last 12 months? And I don't know, maybe we can start with Denisa?
I noticed the accent they started putting on impressions, and when they introduced the impressions for comments, that came as a surprise. I did see that the algorithm would suggest content based on whichever connection I had commented on a specific post. When seeing this actually being able to be measured is very interesting in my point of view, and to start looking at comments as standalone posts rather than publishing a post, I found it very interesting in how things started shifting there and how results in brand awareness come.
And what about Eunice?
Okay, I'm starting off with my first hot take of the day, and it's that unless you're reporting findings on a hot topic or a very timely subject, I've seen that general summaries really don't move the needle. You have to get really specific about an angle. You have to have a really bold opinion, or you have to accompany it with a personal anecdote. And when it comes to the latter, we're seeing this rise in founder-led branding because we're also seeing that a personal channel can bring as much awareness to a brand than a corporate account could. So your role as a social media manager is to understand the nuance in that performance. So maybe it's being mindful of the bandwidth that's going into a post for the brand's account and maybe spending more time and energy supporting the executive comms versus institutional comms because ultimately, your insights as a social strategist are just as valuable to a personal brand as they are to a corporate brand. And it's about understanding that you're still advising on best practices. It's just a different type of medium. I would also say that when it comes to the different pillars, I think of content in terms of two pillars, and it's the resourcefulness and the relatability. Resourcefulness, obviously, includes utilitarian content, but I think we're seeing a big opportunity for brands to tap more into that relatability where they shine what the emotional journey of a user is, and they also are giving some space for the shared experiences that create a community.
Wow, that's amazing. It was really a hot take. We are starting strong. Before we continue, I'm just gonna introduce Casey. I'm so happy she could join us. She's a senior social media manager at Slack. Hi, Casey, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for bearing with me with some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to be here and chat about LinkedIn with everyone.
Yeah, I'm also so happy that you could join us and everything turned out good on your side. I asked Nis and Denisa what were the biggest shifts they personally noticed on LinkedIn performance over the last 2 months. Would you like to complete
Yeah,
with
sure.
something else here?
I think the responses were great. The thing I would add that's been just something we've definitely noticed is just we have to work harder to get impressions and engagement. We have to be very thoughtful with our content and our audience, and not do a one size fits all across social media. We have to really be thinking specifically about LinkedIn and testing and learning and trying new things. So that's made it a really fun challenge, and it's helpful to use the data from reports like you all have provided to like learn what things we can try differently.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Also, we're gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna just give a sneak peek. I have the same opinion about follower growth and about followers. Like to gain followers is not the same anymore as it used to be. But we're not gonna talk about it. I'm going to the next question I prepared today for you, and it's about carousel posts. A short question before the main one. Do you like carousels? Do you like to do one or think about it? Or, yeah, okay. So our data suggests that carousel posts outperform other formats. And I'm curious, why do you think that's happening? Uh, I don't know, maybe Casey or Nice or
Happy to jump
Denisa.
in. Uh, I think with LinkedIn, I don't think users have like fully shifted to thinking of LinkedIn as a video first platform. I know they've tested out like the video only feed on the mobile app, and I think some people still have it, some people don't. I don't think that push really hit with people. I think um, a lot of people are still scrolling with sound off. And so for multiple reasons, I feel like video just isn't hitting the mark as much as they thought maybe it would in the platform. And carousels are, I think, connecting with people because on LinkedIn, the user is maybe job searching or they're looking for content that's educational or related to their work in some way, like actionable. And I think carousels are a great way to like serve that up to your audience and put it in like a great format that they can save, refer to later, and just very easily click through and like read and find that material.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to say something, Nis?
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on what Casey was sharing too in terms of the user experience of carousels. But I think two things are at play when it comes to the engagement of carousels. One is that firms now have a firm understanding of what best practices look like for this format. We've had time to test and we've had time to optimize, so we really understand what a good content experience looks like for our audiences. And two, the second part to that, I think, is an application of neuroscience and understanding the psychology of both human and user behavior on the platform. So when neuroscientists coined a term called, the term is infovore and refers to the dopamine rush that our brains get when we're presented with new information, which is, I think, what makes carousels so engaging because they're more interactive and our brains are wired to respond to that novelty. And the second layer to that is understanding the psychology of the user experience, which I think is something that Casey touched on. And it's that carousels are designed to put the audience in control because it feels almost like a luxury for a social media user because you can control how fast or not you're consuming it. When we're in a tendency now where we know that we're either listening or watching content on 2x speed, carousels give users the power to consume that content 3x speed, 4x speed, 5x speed. So they're really putting the user in control. And I think that adds to the reason that they're so effective.
Wow. I'm so happy we record this because I would love to hear it again and maybe take some notes. And I'm gonna share this recording because I got a question in the chat. This recording will be shared with everyone. So don't worry, you're not gonna lose this important information. Yeah, indeed. Carousels gives you more opportunity to do what you want to do, to scroll, to read, to pause, exactly what I was thinking. But I have a question I didn't mention in our key insights, but in our report we have the album. It's slightly than carousels, but it's still performing. Do you think it's a difference between the carousels and the album post on LinkedIn? Like how do you see it? Because I didn't post album post on our social media on our LinkedIn page, and I'm curious if you have this experience of posting album, like multiple image.
Yeah. Uh, we typically will use the carousel like document format for something that's more informative and has more text, and it's kind of like you're clicking through like an actual report. For the album format, that's where we host a lot of events throughout the year that we go to, and we use those for like a content capture moment for social. We love sharing like post-event recaps in that album format, and that's always a very strong performer for us. So we just think of it as more like photo roundup versus like an actual document with more text information.
Okay, that's very nice to hear. Like it's more like personal, like multiple posts. You feel like it's. I understand. That's amazing to hear. And as I say, we're gonna talk a bit about follower growth because it's a problem all across pages, and I don't know if you can feel it for your brands, but I can feel it, and I'm curious if people watching us can feel the follower growth decreased, and it's harder right now to gain followers than it was, I don't know, maybe even last year. So the question I have for you, so if engagement is actually increasing, but follower growth is harder, what should brands optimize for today? And maybe Denisa wants to start. What do you think?
I'm starting to see on LinkedIn things that I've already started seeing in Facebook and Instagram, that follower isn't as an important metric as it was initially. I mean, algorithms work in such a way right now that it's not necessarily needed for you to follow an account to receive its content. So you are basically targeted with that content, even though you didn't follow it, but you've interacted with content. So I think there's this shift in how we treat metrics at scale and which of them are most important. And even though we still tend to look at followers, I don't believe they are excuse me, it's my cat. I don't
Oh, we
believe.
want to see it.
Yeah, I'll show him to you immediately after I remove my background. But I don't believe followers, even though we tend to give this metric importance, it's not as relevant as it was 2 or 3 years ago, considering how algorithm has shifted and how content is delivered to audiences. So engagement, yes, it's on the rise, and it's proving how the algorithm works right now. And yeah, I don't think, even though it's a vanity metric and it can validate your position within a market, I don't think it's as important as it was. Ladies, what do you think?
Well, I think the same is not that important for I mean, it's important if you look from a CMO position. Maybe they want to know or they correlate somehow the follower growth, the number of followers with social media success. But I can see that it's harder right now, and I'm trying to find new ways to measure it and to maybe comment more on LinkedIn to people to get to know our brand or see us or to see that we are there. And I'm also curious about Casey. Casey, you wanted to say something? Yeah, please
Yeah, I'm
share
gonna
with
jump
us.
in. I think really thoughtful too of, follower growth is not the only metric to measure. There's so much more to show, like your content is performing, connecting with people, and now we see the kitty. How cute. Um, but I think if your engagement is increasing or staying strong, but like follower growth is harder, I think it means, your audience cares about your content, they're engaging. Hopefully that dwell time is higher, but you're not reaching new people. So I also like to think of like our brand page as just part of an ecosystem where you're amplifying, in addition to your brand page, you're also participating in like employee engagement and employee content and have them share out messaging. Also content creators, and then as you mentioned, like outbound community engagement. I think all of those things help you get your content in front of new people, and then ideally, then they're following and engaging with you. But even if not, you're still reaching an audience outside of just your followers. Additionally, we love testing out playful content and participating in trends when it makes sense for our brand. I was doing some digging, looking at our numbers at times where we saw like a good, kind of boost in follower growth. One of which was last year around Halloween, and we had a post that was based on a trend it was a carousel format, and it was the trend that was like, it's a haunted house, but, and you were choosing things relatable to like your audience. And like for us, it was like, it's a haunted house, but it's a meeting that could have just been a Slack message. So I was looking at the data, we saw a big growth with that. And I think it was because it was just more like lifestyle relatable content, not necessarily us trying to tell them about our product. And that resonated with people. They were sharing it to their audience, and then I think gave us a larger boost in following.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of post. I love them on LinkedIn, like especially employee engagement. It's one of my favorite things to watch on LinkedIn as a user, but also as a social media manager because I can see another person behind the screen rather than myself. And Denisa, you raise your hand. Do you want to say something? Your microphone is off. Yeah.
Of course, always
Yeah.
happens. So, because we were speaking of hot takes, I have another one. I know this is a discussion with followers and how different stakeholders view this metric. However, and this I wanted to debate with you ladies. How do you think platforms should help us, help not us, but brands grow their followers? Because if a person follows us, we have to give them a reason. So on Instagram, we have the stories area where this is visible only to followers and they can access specific content there. We don't necessarily have that kind of thing on LinkedIn. So I'm wondering if the platform can do better in that way to support follower growth by giving people reason to do so. This is my answer.
That's
I
a
like that
great,
hot take.
yeah, exactly. Because on LinkedIn, like you said that we don't have like a tease for our followers, right? So what do you think, girls?
I think to Denise's point, it could also, the platform itself could be a little bit more friendly when it comes to user interaction, and essentially all of the platforms across Meta and TikTok, you have the ability to include GIFs or, there's more customizable options that you can use to interact. LinkedIn, I think. I'm sure if LinkedIn is tuned in now and hearing us, I'm sure they'll have some consideration to, what kinds of options are available for us to interact with other users. But if just bringing the conversation back in general to the followers and how larger brands are experiencing a harder time with growth, I think it's also about zooming out a little bit and looking at the bigger picture and understanding that when you have incremental growth across anything, then a plateau is going to be inevitable. And it comes time to a point where the strategy switches to retention and engagement as an extension versus growth. And if you think about, marketing being a support for larger for broader business goals, and you think of in terms of sales and customer acquisitions, it's 5 to 25 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain an existing customer. So you can think of that the same way with your content, and that you have now, a considerable following. What are you doing to continue providing value to that audience, and what are you doing to continue building trust so that they are more willing to be receptive to, an offering or service that you have?
Yeah, I love that with nurturing our already follower base. It's one of the strategy that I'm pursuing right now. So because it's harder to bring new ones. I'm just gonna fight for those we already have. So, Casey, we have a question in the chat for you. Because you mentioned employee engagement, and Sheldon asked you if it is better if they share your content, like your employees or I don't know colleagues, or to create new content mentioning your brand. What do you think?
Yeah. We do both. And I think it's also just the nature of humans. Sometimes you're going to have employees that don't want to create their own content, but they're happy to like repost or like quote repost, and add their own copy. So we make it easy for them to do both. We use an employee like advocacy tool where things are set up in there so they can just like click and it will automatically post to their LinkedIn. But some people also don't want to connect their personal LinkedIn to something related to work into a tool and have to do multiple clicks. So anytime we have like a product launch or an event or just a big moment, we share internally within our Slack channels, the links to our recent posts. We have an internal AI tool, but you could do this with your own. Create a prompt that helps them draft copy for their own post and then also provide them with some creative. So, you can give them a prompt of like, hey, put this into your AI tool or just use this as like an outline or suggestion for yourself to write of like, this is this new tool we launched. I'm excited about it because, and like something relatable to them personally. And then, give them some like high quality on brand creative they can use. We've seen even with a recent launch, someone on the sales team just did a very basic repost with a little bit of copy, and they had outreach from a customer based on that. So like those little things really can make a difference for your business. So yeah, I think I want to say it's a mix. And with execs, I think it's really great for like your senior leaders to get like really custom high quality content for them. Potentially even like videos or other really strong assets where they're talking about things from like their perspective as a leader.
Thank you so much for answering. This was really helpful. I hope it for everyone that heard it. Let's move on and talk a bit about video views. So, first of all, do you post video on LinkedIn? Like it's in your strategy? Sometimes. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's not part of your main posting schedule, right?
For
Okay.
us, I would say it's not, for us, it's less about like checking the box for video, but like understanding when the message would benefit from video. Since we're, a B2B tech brand, sometimes when we're launching something new, it's really hard to explain that within static creative. So then it's like, let's do a demo video where we're walking through it. But then additionally, I like to supplement with, carousel content or just something where we're sending people to the blog to read more or sending people to a webinar where we'll have, someone going through that live. But it's really just like, it's about being thoughtful about where we work in video, where it's helpful.
Okay, because there has been 36% decrease in video views on LinkedIn, and I'm curious to know if video still holds that same power, that same weight when building a LinkedIn strategy like it was last year, because LinkedIn last year pushed video so hard, like I was not even watching videos and they were keep appearing to my screen. So I'm curious if right now when building a LinkedIn strategy, how are we thinking of videos? What do you think? Maybe Nis, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. I echo Casey's sentiment and understanding how the message is going to be delivered best. And I think, in working with VCs and tech brands, I think it makes more sense for video to be shared from an executive account or, somebody from the leadership team because there's something to be said for that personal connection that you feel. And getting their point of view, I think it's more enriching, but it's a little bit. I don't know that we've figured out yet, brands, how to best use video on LinkedIn. And it might just be the case where you don't have to force it. If you're finding that it's not something that your audience is resonating with, there's something to be said for trying it out. I think across all platforms, algorithms give you a bit of an incentive to try and test new features, but ultimately it comes down to what's working for you, what's realistic for you and your team and your bandwidth and your resources. And if it's not something that's, providing the right ROI, then I don't think it's something. I think a lot about a quote that I've been replaying lately, and it's that if you are giving it your absolute best effort and it is not working out, then you should quit early.
This is working for everything. For
Yeah.
LinkedIn also, but in life it's working for everything, and you're totally right. Also, a video implies more resources, more time spent, more, and if it's not working, then yeah, I I want to share something with you. So I saw on our LinkedIn page sometimes I don't know, it's very difficult to understand sometimes. Sometimes some LinkedIn videos are working if they are with my colleagues. If I do something funny or I don't know, share a day in our life in the office, maybe it's something about relatable to someone, and maybe that's the case. But yeah, oh, I'm curious, Denisa, to ask you, what do you think about this? Because you had a recent video going viral everywhere. So, what do you think about videos on LinkedIn? And if somebody who's working on their strategy should, I don't know, think about them to add in their strategy?
I think sometimes video serves the right purpose. I mean, for that specific video between Lego and top football players in preparation of the FIFA tournament this year, the World Cup. I mean, that video that everyone saw had its place also on LinkedIn because people would recognize it, engage with it, and see it on other channels. So it made a lot of sense there to have video. But as Nice also mentioned, and also Casey, if that doesn't serve the creative purpose, we should not force it. And I also have another hot take on this regarding the platform and questioning the platform at hand. I know most of users use LinkedIn from desktop. However, there is a quite interesting part of users who use the mobile app, myself included. And UX-wise, videos are difficult to be consumed. So versus, again, I'm comparing with Instagram Reels. If I want to just tap and read the caption because before the text gets cut off, there's a limited number of characters. It's very difficult. If I press on the caption, the video pauses, so I can't hear it in the background and stuff like that. And these are immense flags regarding video consumption. How can we encourage video consumption if we are putting barriers there. So this is, I think, a challenge for the platform. They seem like they want to have video, but the platform isn't yet optimized for video as others did at this moment in time. Yeah.
Something else that Denise was mentioning too, with the success that you had with the all the football players and with the tournament coming up, and I think something that Casey also touched up on the report is repurposing your content. And so if video, is something that you're already producing for your other channels, it's absolutely a place that you can try testing it on LinkedIn. If you're seeing that the content resonated well across other platforms, why not take a moment and see how it performs on LinkedIn, but it doesn't mean that it has to be your number one focus and to try to make it work. And again, I think it goes back to the message that you're delivering. When there's a VC firm that does video really well, and it's because it's not the format, it's the actual content that is the most important thing to consider. And it's because what they share in those videos is more of that relatability content where they're talking about, it's essentially like a spoof or like a meme where they're poking fun at how VCs operate, or they're poking fun at how fundraising deals are going now, and they're essentially, using humor, but it's not necessarily the video that's making it. It's the best way to express that, but it's ultimately still comes down to content as the number one consideration in what you're sharing.
Thank you. Amazing about all this discussion about video. I love it because LinkedIn was not really the platform right now for video. I mean, I didn't feel like it was, like Denisa said, optimized and I know prepared to have to be a video platform. So we all knew that, and now the data prove us that LinkedIn it's not really the place to have. To have a main strategy with videos. But in some cases, like Casey mentions, when you do a demo or you want to show a new feature, a new tool, yeah, it's the best thing to do so the audience see it fast and engage with it and learn. But it's really easy to do it this way. But also, what I notice in our data is that brands are posting in 2026 more than ever, so more than last year or the year before. What do you think about this? It's more content actually better? If someone wants to start.
I can jump in. I would say no, it's not better. We had this exact scenario like last summer. We went through a phase where our like engagements and impressions were just dropping. So we were like, let's just push more content, see if that's, the solution. We just need to have more. So for an entire quarter, we were posting more, like 50% more, like or and up. Like it was so much more. We did not see a significant increase in impressions or engagements. We even also spoke with like our LinkedIn rep, and they kind of, had the same feedback and like thought as us of like letting your content breathe. We were like, so what does that mean when you say let the content breathe? Like how many hours? They're like, you have to figure that out on your own. But we took a step back the following quarter. We're just more thoughtful about the messaging. We didn't, we don't need to have three messages or three, pieces of content every week about the same like message. Like, can we space this out a bit more? Can we put forward content that we're like really proud of and we think will perform strongly? And then we also took a step back and looked at our annual metrics and realized that we see a lot more engagements, impressions in our Q4, which is like specific to us because we have a big conference every year in that time frame. So when we looked at how we were performing that entire year, we were like, oh, we're on track for like our annual goals and our metrics. So I feel like it's one, you don't need to be pushing more, but also if you feel like, your engagement or things are low, and try to step back and take like a bigger picture look at it too.
I agree with Casey. I think it's really helpful looking back on, quarterly reviews or annual reviews, and something that I always do regardless, because this is a soapbox I'm willing to stand on. And it's that I'm looking to see if there is a correlation in performance with the volume of posts that we're going out, because I always want to be ready to make the argument that we don't necessarily need to be posting more if we're seeing we're hitting the milestones we want to hit with the number of posts we have now. So it's always just a good practice to be doing that in general. And then I will say that I think when it comes to quantity versus quality, I think posting more is for the early stages when you're still trying to test and optimize and figure out what is going to resonate best with your audience. And then once you have an idea of what that content looks like, then you should really be focused on the quality and figuring out how do I deliver the best version of this possible. And I think it's being mindful of, the arena that you're playing in. If you are on a team that has multiple people and you're working on a sports or entertainment brand where you have to be posting a high volume of content because that's what the game calls for. It's a much different story if you are an early stage tech company. Your audience have completely different needs. So posting more isn't going to be more beneficial to you. It's understanding, what area you're operating in.
And so my hot take from what you said is maybe to know our ICPs better and to create high value content for them, but not necessarily more like to fool their feeds. Also, someone in the chat told us something really true, like I can feel it every day on LinkedIn, that the content takes 2 days to really pick up some impressions and engagement. Do you see this on LinkedIn?
As
And
a user, I see the comment where it can take 2 days to a week. As a user, when I'm scrolling, I read like there's been that joke, I feel like for months now when they switched up their algorithm on LinkedIn where it's like, oh, this will be great to see this post like 2 weeks from now.
yeah,
And I feel like that's still happening. Maybe they balanced it out a little bit. But completely agree with that. I think for us, we'll typically, when we have announcements, we'll see a lot of engagement at that moment because of like the urgency in it and like this is new. We get some great engagement with that. With our other content, we do feel like it has that like kind of more of a long tail reach with engagement. I think that's really just from the algorithm. But it's also something we keep in mind for like events or things that we need to talk about, and ensuring that we're giving enough like runway for that content to be live and be in the feed for a bit before it's too late. Because I hate whenever I see someone post about like a cool event and I'm seeing it 2 weeks after the event happened. So trying to be mindful
yeah,
of time.
exactly. And I saw the same thing. So this month on 1st of April, so everyone posted jokes and stuff on LinkedIn. So I was thinking to post because of this, because we gain likes and followers and everything later, much later after one post. I said, I'm gonna post 1 day in advance. What can happen? And actually, the post went really well, like better than other posts on our page. So I'm not sure what's the case here. Maybe if it's something related to an event or something that there's a lot of buzz and noise online, maybe the post gain traction faster than usually. But right now, when I post something, I'm really upset at the moment, like in that day, like I don't get at least one like. At least I'm gonna call my mom and said, hey, can you like my photo? But after a few days, I can see that people are commenting and they start engaging with my post. So maybe this will fix later on.
Mhm.
But
Can I add to that? I think that's why it's also important to like not make harsh decisions like 1 week after a post has went live, or like if you're of course you should be looking at your analytics regularly, but if you're like at the end of the week looking back at the week and being like, oh, this underperformed, let's not do any of that anymore. Like that's too harsh. It's like always good to do monthly, quarterly reviews and look at those bigger trends before you make decisions too.
yeah, exactly. I love that. But you mentioned underperform, and I want to like switch back and ask all of you what is actually a high performing post, how a high performing post on LinkedIn should look like. Like right now, people who are listening and seeing us, when they are thinking of, I want to make a really good post, what they should have in mind. I don't know. Nis, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say across the board, there's many directions. There's a lot of advice we could talk about. I'm sure all three of us, all four of us, on what makes a high quality post. I think something to keep in mind is what is the emotional pull that I am providing with this? Because, when I mentioned earlier, the two pillars that I always think of in terms of resourcefulness and relatability, I think we are much more inclined to connect or resonate with something that speaks to our experience and our emotional journeys than we are to, I think informative posts are have their place and they're as valuable, but I think if I want to think about what does a high performing post look like, and in when I think about in terms of VC, it's getting personal or sharing why something is why they're so passionate about solving a certain problem, or like what their journey looked like. The founder that started their company after being laid off at 46 and went through all the hurdles and talked about, the pain and the uncertainty and that messy middle and not knowing what comes next. Whenever there is an emotional aspect to a post, that's when I think you have the most resonance and the most engagement and the most pull. So I would say, what is the emotional component that you're considering when you're posting something?
Amazing, this. Yeah. So it's still related to getting to know your audience. Like, what is their trigger point, and could be an emotional trigger, right? Okay, I love to hear that. I still have a few more questions, and I don't want the time to ruin everything. So I'm gonna move on. But if someone wants to add something here, do you want to? Sure.
Yeah. When you first said that question, I wasn't even thinking about the content itself. I was also thinking of like the result of like what tells you when something was like a high performing post. Sometimes when I'm looking through like our analytics or our page, I'll see a post that has a lot of likes and maybe some reshares and it has, great impressions. And I'm like, oh, that's a good strong performer. But when I'm like, oh wow, this was like really great, is when I see like the comment section popping off and people are engaging with that way or reposting it to their audience. So even if those posts maybe have overall fewer or lower impressions or engagements than some other posts, there's still so much you can learn from that if you kind of go into that comment section and see what people are talking about, or what, as Nee said, like what kind of emotions are we evoking from the audience there. And it's just like it's a great little way to like learn from something where it's beneficial to like go to the page itself and do some digging versus just looking at the numbers high level.
Yeah, and to Casey's point, I think a lot of our jobs as social media managers is to be able to explain and interpret data to our stakeholders. And so sometimes, when you look at a post and it has overall more likes and than a post with comments, the fact of the matter too is that we as social media users and consumers are really only doing one action. So you're either going to like it or you're going to comment. It's very rare that you're going to like, comment, share, and like send it to your friends, just because convenience is the commodity of our generation. If we are now in a time where we can't even be bothered to click the link in bio, we have software that was developed to send you and message you a link, then a comment to me is much more valuable because it means somebody took the time to stop and write and, share what their sentiment is. And it speaks much more to how it resonated versus a much more passive action than a like. Anybody can like and swipe through something, but if you're taking the time to comment, I think it really speaks to the performance of that post.
Yeah, exactly. A comment is very valuable. And Anita, you raise your hand. Sure.
I just wanted to add amazing answers, Eunice and Casey, and I'm fully on board with what they said. I just want to add how we also think regarding to the algorithm, and how our conclusion is that stirring comments is the one of the best metrics out there. Having impressions over comments and how comments are being pushed in the algorithm also is something to be mindful of. Because basically conversation is encouraged by the platform as a whole, and having interesting takes on specific debatable topics will make a difference.
Thank you, Denisa, for jumping in. And I'm gonna move on. If do you still want to say something about this?
I was gonna add one thing. Sorry to like keep
Sure.
going with it, but the conversation about the comments is just like making me think of other like,
Yeah.
things. Like outbound community engagement and comments. There have been times when our LinkedIn comments on someone else's post have gotten more impressions than like our top performing post of the month. So like there's jump into conversations that make sense for your brand. Is just, another way to like get out there. Like we've had comments where it's had 500,000 impressions, which is insane to think, but it's really another lever you can pull, and those conversations can be used as like inspiration for content from your brand as well.
Yeah, exactly. I love outbound comments and I use it in our strategy. And also, I can see much more impressions than my regular post. And sometimes I'm jealous, but sometimes I'm thinking, this is my idea, and I'm going to use that comment with a meme or whatever I comment there, and I'm going to use it in my post. And guess what? It works. The post gain more traction and more engagement. But first, I tested in the comments, so that's a really good tactic to use it on LinkedIn. What I also wanted to ask, and it's related of everything you said, if impressions and engagement still predict the business impact on LinkedIn, because we talked about how followers is still important for some CMOs, or we have to report everything. So uh, are these metrics still important for the business impact, and how do we report it? Or there have become some misleading signals? What do you think? Um, Denisa, do you want to say something?
Um, I'm gonna think this through a bit.
Sure, of course. I'm curious to know because I'm still looking at impression engagement, and I think everyone here that is watching us, they are still reporting those metrics, but how well do they reflect the real impact right now? Or we should look more like we do on Instagram, because we talked last month about Instagram, and people said that they are looking more at shares, at saves, at comments, and they can see more engagement value from there rather than impressions or views or reels views. And I'm curious if this is the same pattern with LinkedIn.
Yeah. I think it's one part of the puzzle. And like our
Like
entire
always.
conversation has been like, it's not just looking at the numbers at a high level. It's digging in to see like understanding the data and what learnings you can take from that. Engagements as a whole is one thing, but like what, as you said, like on other platforms and on LinkedIn, like what exact engagements is that in the comment section? So it's really like it's just a piece of the puzzle. And it can be misleading, I think. So I also think it's like dig in deeper into the data and just spend more time in it. I think they can still predict some business impact. And also, one thing we do is we have like UTM links for our content. So anytime we are sharing a link, we can also track like traffic to our website and use that as another measurement and get credit for, the traffic we're sending to the site. This helped us make like a business decision where we were uncertain if we wanted to promote like webinars on our LinkedIn, because we were like, we're not seeing like a ton of, engagement on the post itself. But when we looked at the data of like people clicking through, we realized with some of our promotion for webinars, the social content was driving more registrations than other like marketing efforts, which blew our mind, but we wouldn't have known if we didn't have, take a closer look at that data. So then it helped us make that choice to consider, continue doing those.
This is so
Wow.
interesting. Sorry, I wanted just to say this is so interesting. And regarding what Nice was saying earlier, that we as users tend to do one single action. So as action, they would action
Yeah.
registering to a webinar. So yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, and someone Someone in the chat said that link clicks if you wanted to look at something else more than just engagement. And it's exactly like you said, Casey. If you do some UTMs, you can really see how things are going and moving. And I really love that, like to see the real impact. Because, like Nis mentioned, I think in the beginning of this session, we are kind of lazy to like, share, or things like that. So, it's amazing. And someone is asking if are we still putting links in the post copy or hidden in the comments? What do you guys think?
We keep ours in the post copy. We've tested out putting them in the comments. If LinkedIn's watching, this is another like hot topic point for them. Let us pin comments again because it would be great to have a comment pinned with the link.
Yes,
We didn't
yes,
see
yes.
like a significant difference from like our brand page of having the link in the post versus in the comments. I think that's something, each brand can like test out for themselves to see if there's a major difference. For us, there wasn't, so we typically tend to still keep it in the main post, but also time and time again, we'll kind of just test it out to see if there is a difference.
But do you think the algorithm rank links post like lower?
We for our page, we didn't see a major difference, so that's why we went back to just having it in the main caption. I know for other people, they've seen different results with it, so I think it's really just testing for your own brand.
So it's better to try both sides and to see some results, how things are working, right?
Mhm.
I think this is also an area where you just have to be brutally honest because ultimately, if you are truly providing something that is so valuable and that your customers are really, it's going to be beneficial to them, they will find the link. That whether it's in the post copy or whether it's in the comments, they're going to actively click for it. But is what you're providing, maybe it's just, and it's not that it's maybe refocusing on what the value is that you're providing. I think we tend to get really nervous about whether this is going to ding us with the algorithm or whether it's going to decrease our reach or not. I think ultimately the question that you still have to answer and be asking is what I'm providing truly of value to my audience? If you're not getting that many, visits or links or signups to your webinars, I don't think it's necessarily an issue of the algorithm. It's maybe just finding a different way to deliver it, maybe social not being the best platform for it. I don't think that you necessarily have to put the algorithm, like what the algorithm's going to do to you, so top of mind. I mean, best practices, there could be something said for best practices, but I don't think you have to be so nervous about like, oh no, I forgot to include the link in the post. No one's going to see this now.
Exactly. And I'm just gonna read you guys something. Someone in the chat just said, I just hope LinkedIn watch a lot of this for ideas and how to improve. A girl can wish. Exactly. I hope. And I also want carousel posts, like real carousel posts. Don't, uh, not PDFs. But yeah, I love the conversation today and I love everything that I learned today from you. And I hope you had a great time. I have to wrap it up, even if I don't want to. But we get a lot of great insights today. And if you guys are watching live or the recording version, I hope you like it. And if we learn something together about LinkedIn engagement today, maybe you would want to share it on LinkedIn. And before we go, let me tell you something. You can actually win $50 Amazon gift card. Very simple. If you think these sessions, today's session, help you learn something, feel free to share it on LinkedIn and tag us, Socialinsider. We will choose 3 winners and please tag our guests. And if you want to maybe tell everyone how they can find you on LinkedIn or what is your favorite platform to reach out. Casey or Nice, who wants to start? Where the great guest can find you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn under Casey Smith, and I'm at Slack or like at Salesforce. So you should be able to find me that way. Happy to connect on there.
Same, you can find me on LinkedIn, Eunice Cancino. I'm sure Marina's also going to have we've had, if you follow Socialinsider, you'll find our tags and our conversations there. So make sure you keep an eye on their channels as well.
That's for me. I know my surname is not necessarily English friendly, so you can find me tagged into Social Insider's posts. I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram. That's where I am most active. And wanted to add something at the end. My two best learnings is that LinkedIn teaches us patience, and comments are micro posts.
Oh, love that. We can all say something. I think we have still 6 more minutes, and maybe to have a later, like an after discussion hot take after everything that's been shared here. I'm gonna say something, and then I'm gonna let you guys said. For me, what I love very much about what we talked today was what Nee said about what is not meant for you, leave it this way, don't start it. I think that's because I love it for like everyday advice, but also for LinkedIn. And I really enjoyed how you all talk about knowing your audience. Like it's not some it's not really about a great strategy, a great post. Sometimes it's just about connection with your audience, with the emotional value you bring to people. So, what do you have after this? What is your hot take about this? Um,
I
yes.
think having the courage, because this is hard, having the courage to push back against some of the expectations on performance with social media, because the reality is, if you think about social media, at the crux of it is content. So if you think about your favorite TV series, you are not enjoying every single episode that comes out the same way. There are some episodes that you could have snoozed or you could have had on in the background while you were like making dinner. And there's some episodes that you are just completely locked in. Your phone's not everywhere near you. You're not scrolling. And you have to understand that there are just cycles. Like, not everything is going to be a top performer. Not everything is always going to resonate. I mean, you quite literally think back on some of your favorite episodes. Think of your podcast. Not every single podcast episode you listen to is going to be one that you share, or is going to be one that you're talking about, with your friends. And so I think you have to have a little bit of humility and understanding that sometimes it's cyclical and that everyone is just doing their best and, given the access to data and information that they have and the resources. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to have that conversation with your stakeholders, but I really want to encourage everyone to you don't have to make up grand stories about why something is not working. Sometimes at the end of the day, it just didn't work. It just wasn't the right format. It wasn't the right time. You were too late. You were too early. And I don't think that you need to put so much stress on the performance and having to explain it. But I do think there's something to be said about, having an open and honest conversation with your team so that they can understand you're doing your best, and there's some things that are just not going to be in your control. And to that point, I also, it's good to perform competitive analysis and point to other brands, and maybe we tend to do this when we're looking for best practices when we want to try something new, but you could also signal as like, hey, like this brand that's in a similar space as us is having similar views or is having similar amount of comments. Like, maybe it's something industry wide. I think we could all do a little bit more to take some pressure off of the performance and the expectations around social media.
Exactly. I love the part with your favorite TV show. It's really, really that way. And Casey, do you want to leave a last message for everyone?
Well, I want to take what Nice just said and like clip it and watch that every morning before I log into work because it was very on point. Um, One of the, I think, questions or like conversation we've had about like what's, the most important metric for LinkedIn success. If I say that like in one word, it would be like authenticity. It's authenticity to your brand and to your audience, and just put that as like your North Star and go for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me. Also, this was my first session that I hosted, and I was very nervous, but thank you for being so present and so engaging and so kind to me here. And I love the conversation. Thank you, Denisa, Casey, and Nis, for taking your time to be here. Even for some of us, I don't know, it's noon, and for you, maybe it's morning. I love that we are far away, we can connect here virtually, and we can be together and inspire each other. And what can I say? It was a pleasure, and thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It was wonderful.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being
Bye.
here.